Alright, I want to welcome everybody to the webinars. We have started these webinars to get our clients more comfortable with this software. I know a lot of you guys have noticed we have different software this year, and of course with different software comes different problems. We want to make sure that you guys are very comfortable going into tax season with this software because it is very easy to use. I personally like it a lot. Again, my name is Andy Vongdara. I've been with this company since 2007. I'm a tax software analyst here, and yeah, my job is to make sure you guys are very comfortable with it, like I said. So this webinar is going to be running Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. It's going to be going for 3 weeks, and we also are doing Spanish on Fridays. The schedule for our webinars can be found on our website at trxmembers.com. The first week we're going to be covering your speed of refund clients. Those are it's going to be typically the guys that come into your office at the beginning of tax season. Typically they're EIC clients, low income, real simple returns, so we're going to go over that first. The second week we're going to be doing your modest family returns, where we're getting more of the schedules, schedule A's, B's, C's, D's, all that, Schedule E, maybe even some K1s. Well, actually, week 3 is when we're going to be covering your investors and your K1 returns, and more in depth into depreciation. So that schedule can be found on our website at www.trxmembers.com. Some of the things that we're going to cover each week on these webinars, there'll be a few things that we cover repeatedly, just to get you guys more comfortable with it, such as adding a form, adding states, working with your forms tree, the auto error check, depreciation. Okay, some of the things the webinars won't cover will be installation, networking, troubleshooting, stuff like that, because that's what our support team is for. Like I said, the purpose of this webinar is to get you guys comfortable with using the software and filing a return, filling out a return. We also have online training videos for some of the things that we're not going to be covering, like the installation and troubleshooting. That is found on our website also at www.trxmembers.com. And at the end of this demo, we are going to go open the support line, or the chat screen here, for questions. What I want everyone to do is to chat their question, type out their question on the chat message that we have in the eBoulevard Meeting Manager. And at the very end of your question, also include your email address, so that in case we can't get to your question right away, I can respond via email. Also, another thing I want to note that if you guys have any questions when we're not on the webinar and you guys want to speak with me directly, again, my name is Andy. It's extension 3515, and my email address is Andy, A-N-D-Y, at trxsoftware.com. And I'll repeat that later for you guys. Let me check on some of the few people here. Looks like we have a few people still trying to connect with us, so I'll give them a minute. Okay, looks like 2 more people are trying to join. 3 more. Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. I'm going to speak up and move a little closer to the phone just in case. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with the demonstration. Like I said, I'm going to repeat, we're going over interview mode, depreciation, adding a form, but mainly the interview mode and working with the forms, and we will cover some depreciation today. So once you open up the program, you're going to see this screen here. This is our home screen. It's got your shortcuts on here, new return, open return. User maintenance will be where you can move and delete returns, print return, send your e-files, training videos, and manual. If you guys haven't seen that training manual on here, it is awesome. It is very detailed and will cover everything. You can upload and download clients, download your updates, register your program. Also go to the e-file center here, after the fact payroll, and our tax estimator. So we're going to start with a new return today. When we press new return, this small window will appear where we're going to type in our basic information. Right now we're working in individual mode for the 1040. Type in a social. Already used that social and it'll remind me. So we'll select our filing status on the screen here. Say married, found jointly. Okay, if we press OK, what it'll do is it'll go to our input mode. We have two different modes, interview mode and input mode. Today we are going to go over interview mode as well as input mode. Now interview mode is for your data enterers, data entry clients, or support staff, I mean. It's pretty much only going to cover a little bit of the return, like your basic information, your dependents, your due diligence, your W-2s, and this is for your speed of refund clients. You know, the beginning tax season when your doors are being flooded with those people that want to get their refunds right away. This is a feature that you can have in your office where you have your support staff who aren't tax preparers, but they can do data entry. That way, when they get back to your office, everything is ready, and it takes less work, for you to enter this information. So this is the interview mode. When you press interview mode, it'll open up the screen here, and then the people in your office can just enter the basic information. Filing status is joint, and then we'll enter the taxpayer's first name, last name, date of birth, phone number, etc. I'm just tabbing to go to each section, to each line. We'll enter a street address, zip code. When we type in the zip code, the city and state is auto-populated. Now what we're going to do from here is we can either click on the tab to go to the next screen, or we can press the next button down here in the bottom right. Alright, the next screen is going to be for your dependents. What we're going to do is we're going to press new to enter a new dependent. It's going to open up this bottom screen down here, the fields down here. So now we can enter our dependent information. Alright, once we're done entering the dependent information, we have to press save. Okay. Now it'll bring that dependent to the list at the top. In order to add a new one, we'll press new and do the same thing. And then again we'll press save. In order to edit one of these dependents, could you please mute your phones over there? Thank you. In order to edit a dependent, we have to highlight the dependent on the list and then press edit, and then it'll open up the fields down here in the bottom to edit their information. So we're going to go to the next screen, dependent EIC due diligence. First, we need to highlight our dependent on the list, and then we need to answer these questions for due diligence for the EIC, lines 9 through 14. So the first question, is the child the taxpayer's son, daughter, stepchild, foster child, brother, sister, stepbrother, stepsister, or descendant of any of these, any of them? We're going to put yes. Is either of the following true? The child is unmarried. Yes. Did the child live with the taxpayer for over half the year? Yes. Okay. Could any other person check yes in lines 9 through 11 for the child? We'll say no. Okay. Skip to line 14. Does the child have a social security number that allows him or her to work and is valid for EIC purposes? We'll say yes. So if these questions are answered properly and we hit save, we'll look up here on this dependent and we'll know that this dependent is eligible for EIC. And we'll do the same for the next dependent by clicking on the second dependent's name and answering the questions again for each dependent. Okay. Now let's go on to the next screen. This is your taxpayer EIC due diligence. We need to answer these questions for the taxpayer now to make sure they are eligible for EIC. Does the taxpayer have a social security number that allows him or her to work? Yes. Was the taxpayer a non-resident alien for any part of the year? No. Could the taxpayer or taxpayer's spouse, if filing jointly, be the qualifying child of another person in the current year? No. Okay. We'll skip part 2. Part 4 of your due diligence requirements. Has Form 8867 been completed? Has there been compliance with the knowledge requirement? Have certain forms been kept? Have you ever been denied the earned income credit? We'll say no. And this one is just a blank field. Okay. Let's go on to the next screen. W-2 information can be entered here or in input mode. Let's add a new W-2 here in the interview mode. We'll press new. Okay, this will open up the bottom fields for entry. First, we'll start with the employer identification number. Okay. Notice how all I did was type in the EIN number. We do have an EIN database, so that if you have typed in that EIN number before, it'll remember the employer's name, zip code, street, address, all that. Alright, we'll stop here at one W-2, but we will add more in the input mode. So we'll hit save this W-2, go on to the next information. The prepare information your prepare information is entered here. What I did there was I had an ID number created from my prepare information. There's multiple ways of adding your prepare information. Having a prepare ID makes it easy. All you do is, it works the same way as an EIN database. If you type in this prepare ID once and then you fill out this information, it'll remember this information based off the ID number that you supplied it. So I'm ID number 1. When I type in 1 again here, it'll auto-populate all this information. Whoever just jumped on the line, could you please mute your phone? Okay, let's go on to the next screen here. The refund and payment options screen. This will be where you will select the payment options through interview mode. Again, this is accessible through input mode also. But we'll say direct deposit. And move on to the next screen. Okay, this screen here is important for interview mode. Your support staff or data enterers can go through here and figure out what exactly needs to be added to the return. So this first question here says, do you have any bank interest? If they select yes here, it's going to add a Schedule B to the return. And they can even start entering amounts here. So payer's name and amount received. Line 2, did you have any unemployment or state refunds? We'll say yes. Did you receive or pay any alimony? Say no. Were you at any time during the year self-employed? We'll say yes there. And what that'll do is add a Schedule C to the return. Line 5, we'll say no. Actually, we're going to say no for the rest of these. Okay. Now that we have interview mode filled out, what we're going to do is we're going to press save and then jump to input mode. Input mode is going to be where most tax preparers are going to be doing the majority of their work. This is a lot more intuitive, where you can actually jump from form to form and do the hard work here. First thing you'll notice is you'll see the form right here in the middle. On the left hand side, you're going to see your forms tree, and then going across we have some shortcuts such as adding a form, closing a return, your auto error check, your prints, and then we have your file and edit menus all the way at the top. Alright, so let's start off with the very first form at the top left hand side of your forms tree. Like I said, this forms tree is a list of everything you have in the return, every form. So we're on the client information sheet. This sheet just goes over basic information again. Filing status, personal information, address, and dependent information. Everything from the interview mode has carried over. So let's go ahead and jump to the second form down here, return information sheet. Notice how there's some red fields on this form, and also red fields on the, or a red box on the forms tree here. What that means is when you see that red marks, that means it's a required entry or it's missing information. So on this return information sheet, we're missing these checkboxes. So we're going to prepare the federal and state. It's going to be an e-file type. Enter our PIN information. Yes, could everybody please mute their phones? Thank you. Alright, so back to where we were. We're on the return information sheet. I was just filling out real basic information like bank account information. There were a few red fields on here that they're pretty much red flags. They want you to take a look at that line. That's what that means. So whenever I address those issues, the return or the form on the left hand side is now blue. So we do have quite a few more red forms on here, but we'll get to those. Alright, so now let's get into the bulk of things. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 1040. The way our program works is everything is linked back to a main form. For example, the 1040. Let's say we are working with W-2s again. If we come here to line 7 of the 1040 and we double click on line 7, it'll open up a menu of all the forms that are associated with line 7. So we have every form that can possibly flow back to line 7. The most common one being a W-2. But you also have other circumstances with 1099R, Schedule C's, whatnot, flowing back to line 7. So when we double clicked on line 7, it brought up this menu. Notice how we have a W-2 here that is blue. That is an existing form that is already linked to that line. But what we're going to do is we're going to add another W-2. We're going to double click on this W-2 here. It's going to ask us how many more we want to add. We'll just say one more. Okay, now it opens up the W-2. Notice here on the left hand column under income we have a form W-2, and once I added the second one it appeared right here below the first one. So we're going to enter our EIN. And it remembered the employer's name and address from past when we entered it before. Okay. So we entered $10,000 of income and $800 federal income tax withheld. So let's jump back to the 1040 and look at how that affected line 7. So before we had $15,000 of income on the first W-2. And after I double clicked on line 7 and added a second W-2 and added $8,000 of income, or actually added $10,000 of income, it gave us a total of $25,000 on line 7. And if we scroll even further down on the W-2, on the 1040 I mean, we'll see our federal payments of $1,800 comprises the two W-2s of line 2, $1,800. So let's go ahead and go on to the next form, Schedule B. This Schedule B information was entered on interview mode, where we indicated that the taxpayer had earned interest income. In order to add multiple lines, all you have to do is press this Add Statement button. It'll open up more lines for more payers. And we can delete lines we don't need. Works the same way for ordinary dividends. But we'll just stick with what we have here. Another thing I want to go over is adding a form not by double clicking. You have more than one way of adding a form. The first way I went over was double clicking on the line that you want it to flow to. So let's say we wanted to add a Schedule C. We would come to line 12, double click, and it would give us the option to add a Schedule C. Another way is coming to the very top here, pressing the Add Form button. This Add Form button will open up a list of all the forms you have available to you. Okay, you can search the form number at the very top in the search field. So if we need 2106, we just start typing 2106 and it'll narrow it down for you. Or you can just scroll through and find the one that you need. This button right here, Select State. This is where you'll select which states you want to add to the return. We'll press that button here. What it'll do is bring up the menu to select your states. It'll bring up a list of everything you have downloaded and installed to your state. Right now we don't have any released to our live version, so I don't have any in here right now, but we will have those. You'll select the filing status of the state or filing type, whether it's a full year resident, non-resident, or part year resident, and then you'll press Add. Once you add the state, this tab here will bring up a list of all your state forms that you added to the return. So we added New York and California. This tab here will now show every New York and every California form that you have available. Alright, so let's go over a few more things. Here on our forms tree, we have a 1099-G that we indicated in interview mode that we had some unemployment income. But let's say for instance that we didn't mean to do that and we need to remove this form. There's two ways to remove a form. We can right click on the line on the forms tree and it'll bring up a little menu. We have Add Form or Remove Form. We'll go ahead and remove that form there. Actually, another way of removing it is highlighting it and coming up here to the remove form button right here. There we go. Alright, so now let's get into the Schedule C. We're going to briefly touch depreciation, because I know that's probably a big thing for everybody. So I'm just going to type in anything for the business code here. Enter lines G and I. Did you materially participate? Or did you make payments for a 1099? We'll say no on that one. We'll come down here to Part 1, Income. We'll say $15,000 of income. Alright, so now let's get into depreciation. We're going to come down here to line 13 of the Schedule C, and if we double click, it'll bring up that menu. Ask us if we want to link to the 4562 for depreciation and amortization. We'll say yes. Double click there. When we try to add the 4562, it wants us to point where the 4562 needs to go, because of course it can go to multiple forms. We want it to go to Schedule C, copy 1 of the Schedule C. So we'll double click. Nope. Accidentally clicked Schedule E, but we'll cancel out and do that again. See, I accidentally clicked Schedule E, so we're going to have to remove that. No big deal. We'll go back to Schedule C. Line 13, double click. 4562, Schedule C. 4562. Okay. A new feature we have in our software this year to make it easier on our clients is the asset depreciation summary. If we link the 4562 to the Schedule C, we'll have access to this asset depreciation summary. If you press this button here, it'll bring up a screen and it'll let you put all of your depreciation on one screen. So let's say we're depreciating computers. There we go. We'll enter in the description, date, place, and service, our cost basis, minus any land value or prior 179. We'll skip that. 100% business use. And it automatically puts in our method and recovery life. We'll stick with that. Now to add multiple items, we're going to press down here, add row. Okay, so this button here will let you add multiple items for this Schedule C. Right now we'll just add 2. To delete an item, you'll highlight it here in the left hand column, put the checkbox next to delete column, and then come down to delete. Say we're going to depreciate some furniture. We'll scroll to the right and fill out the necessary information. Now in this case, we'll say there's some 179. Change that date, place, and service. Okay, now that we have our items added, we're going to press save. Now what it's going to do, it's going to create a worksheet for each item that we added. If you look here on the left hand side on the forms tree, there are 2 depreciation worksheets that have been added to the return. 1 for each item. So the first worksheet we have here is for the computers that we're depreciating. If you scroll down, you'll see what we have for current year depreciation here on line 12. We can enter a prior depreciation, and it also shows you next year's depreciation. Now if we click on the second worksheet here for the furniture, we'll see that we have elected for the 179 amount for this property, $1,000. Actually, we should have put 2012 on that. Change that.
Excuse me, I hate to interrupt, but it sounds like somebody's got their phone
Okay.
not muted.
Yes, if everybody can keep their phones muted, I'd really appreciate it, guys. I know it happens, though. People call in, don't realize it. And I noticed some people are kind of behind as far as joining the meeting. Just want to remind everybody we are doing this Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, covering the same material. Also, if you guys have any questions during this, you guys can chat the questions with your emails at the end of the question, and I will get back to you if I can't get to you. If you had trouble trying to join this meeting, I'll go over how to join this meeting. Also, I'm going to give my email address one more time. It's andy@trxsoftware.com. That's ANDY@trxsoftware.com. Well, let's pick up where we left off. Looks like here there's a red field for cost or basis for the furniture. I don't know if it didn't take it when I entered it in the asset depreciation summary, but we'll enter it again. And it's showing a current depreciation of $250, next year's depreciation of $214. So let's go back to the 4562 and see how everything carried over. If we scroll down, we'll see that on part 3 we have 5-year property, 7-year property, and if we go down even further, we should see our 179 on here. Well, actually it's up here, line 12, under part 1, our 179 deduction. Now if we go back to, well, let's summarize this. We have $1,000 of 179 deduction and $600 of current year depreciation, giving us a total depreciation of $1,600. So if we go back to the Schedule C on line 13, we should see $1,600. Is everybody following me on this depreciation here? I know the phone's ringing. I can hear phone ringing, but alright, I appreciate it. Alright, so that covers our depreciation that we're going to go over today. We'll get into more detail on that later once it gets a little closer to tax season. I'm assuming next week we'll get into much more detail on depreciation. We just want to touch on that today. Get rid of this one. Alright, so I'm going to finish up this return by just reviewing some of the red fields we have on here. So we go to the Schedule EIC worksheet. It's missing some checkboxes that we need. The 1099 miscellaneous, okay. We can add it by pressing the Add Form button and typing 1099. So when we go to add the 1099 miscellaneous, it asks us where we want it to go to. In this case, let's say it's going to go to line 21 of the 1040, other income. So it's going to ask us if we want to link this 1099 miscellaneous to the other statement income, other income statement worksheet. So if we double click here, it's going to bring us up a 1099 miscellaneous. Let's say we had $2,000 of other income. This 1099 miscellaneous is linked to this other income worksheet here. And you can tell it's linked because it's tabbed in underneath that worksheet. So if we come back to this worksheet, we'll see we have $2,000 of other income. And then if we go back to the 1040, we scroll down to line 21, other income line is showing the $2,000 of income.
Andy, isn't that $2,000 qualify for the earned income credit?
If it's under other income, it should qualify for the earned income credit. Let's see if it pulls to the worksheet. We should have $40,500. Earned income.
I mean, if the income is way less than that, if the income is $17,000, would the other income qualify under the earned income credit?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again one more time?
Okay, if the total AGI, adjusted gross income, is $15,000, period, and part of that was a wage is $5,000, and the other part was other income, wouldn't that whole amount, the whole amount of the $15,000 be qualified under the earned income credit?
Yes,
Qualified dependent?
yes. Other income is considered earned income, so it would help you qualify for the EIC. And if you guys could hold your questions till the end, I'm about to open it up for questioning. I just want to go over a few more things before we get into any more detailed questions. So yeah, just let me go back to where I was. What I want you guys to do though is if you have questions, go ahead and use the chat feature. You can start typing them in now, typing the questions in now, and adding your email address at the end also in case we can't get to you. But I'm going to go ahead and go over a few more things on this demonstration, and then I'll open up for questions. So the last thing I wanted to go over in this program is the auto error check. Let's say we believe this return is done, we've reviewed the 1040, and we feel like we've entered everything in that we need to enter. We're going to go to the auto error check now. The auto error check will pull up any overridden fields we have, any missing information, anything that will stop you from getting an acceptance from the IRS. So once I press auto error check, you'll still have your form here at the top, but at the bottom you'll have a message screen that'll show you everything that you have wrong with the return. Right now it looks like we're just missing some basic information. These don't necessarily stop you from getting accepted from the IRS, but it's best to view these. So what we can do is we can click on that line and it'll bring us exactly where on the form that's missing information. So this one looks like it's missing a banking information. Click on the next one. This is missing payer information on the 1099 miscellaneous. Okay. And as we're clearing out these errors, we can press reevaluate to run the auto error check again, and it'll clear out anything we've already covered. So we're going to go to 8867. It's asking us for more due diligence. 8862 was added to this return, even though we selected no that they weren't disallowed EIC before. Just as a safeguard feature, the program adds it anyway. Alright, so now that we have all of our errors checked, we have the return created for eFile, or ready to be created for eFile. To create the return for eFile, we're going to press MEF, and what this does is it finalizes the return and it sends it to your Cloud EFC. And the Cloud EFC we'll cover another time. It's also on our online training videos. So now this return's done. One thing I do want to go over with you guys before I wrap this up is some real basic information on how the program works on each line. If you guys notice, some lines are yellow, some lines are blue. The lines that are yellow mean it's a calculated entry. What that means is this line, the number that flows this line, is being calculated from another form. Like I said, everything that comes to line 7 is calculated elsewhere. That's why when we double click it, you have a list of forms. The lines that are blue are a manual entry field. That means I can type something into it and it'll stay there. So if we type something on the 1040, line 10, that'll be shown as income. But what I wanted to go over with you guys is how to override how to override a calculated entry field. I mean, these yellow lines. Let's say on line 8A, we know that $100 of interest earned is not the case, and we don't know how to get it to flow correctly. What we can do is, and we don't recommend doing this every time, just rare cases. If you have to override a field, you can call our support team. We can take a look at it. But if you're on your own and you know you want something to go there, what you're going to do is you're going to right click and then override. That once calculated line is now a manual entry line. I can erase what's in there, and let's say it's supposed to be $101. And you'll know that it's an overridden field because it's blue with a red box around it. And if we unoverride it, it'll change back to what the program originally calculated to go to this line. And if we have an override on the field and we run the auto error check, it'll let you know that there's an overridden entry on this field. So that wraps up our webinar for today. I hope it covered everything you guys wanted to see today. Just to kind of review what we went over. We went over how to add a new return in interview mode, what the interview mode covered. Once we got into input mode, we added your forms, added a state, removed forms, auto error check. We went over depreciation briefly. We looked at the forms tree. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up the webinar for today. We are going to run the same webinar tomorrow and Thursday, so if you have anybody else in the office that would like to watch these webinars, or if you just want to brush up on what we went over today, feel free to join. And if you guys have any questions, please chat the questions on the eBoulevard message manager, and I will answer it. I will repeat the question to everybody, and repeat the questions to everybody, answer it so everybody can hear it.